There's a lot of uncertainty about the future of the ATF, and I believe there's a lot of hope for us pro Second Amendment people. But I'm here to tell you, I also have a little bit of fear and concern and about the future of the Second Amendment in America and how it revolves around what exactly happens with the ATF as the next president takes over. What are we looking at? What's going to happen? Right now, what you have is you have the current director of the ATF, Daddlebach. And ultimately what he has done is greatly increase gun control significantly throughout the current administration. And what we looked at is heavy red flag efforts. Now, I want to come back to that red flag law because I believe wholeheartedly that the red flag laws are the biggest threat to the Second Amendment. If there are federal red flag laws, you don't have a Second Amendment anymore. You don't. Because people can then at that point take your guns without due process. And, you know, it's the exact same thing that Hitler did in Germany. Germany had some very open gun laws. And Hitler passed red flag laws. And then they deemed the Jews dangerous, took all their guns, and you saw how all that played out. If the government can sit there and say, well, this race is dangerous, or this religion is dangerous, or Christians are dangerous, then you don't have the second, or this militia is dangerous, or that guy's dangerous. You don't have the Second Amendment anymore. So let's come back to red flag laws. But there's definitely been an effort for federal red flag laws, as well as the pistol stabilizing brace. That's been a hot mess. You know, we've been looking at capacity issues. We've been looking at, there is a bunch of stuff going on right now where the ATF is really, in my opinion, overreaching. And I believe wholeheartedly that it's more the policing efforts, the law enforcement efforts that the ATF really should just keep their hands out of. But the biggest threat to the ATF, now, because it's a threat to the ATF does not mean it's a threat to the Second Amendment. So be very clear as I talk about the threats to the ATF right now. I'm not, many of these are very pro Second Amendment. So don't think that I'm saying because it's a threat to them that it's a threat to us as well. Just clarifying that. And these are the biggest threats to the ATF, because ultimately what you have a Republican-controlled Congress that is definitely looking at cutting federal ATF budget. Cutting it. That'd be like cutting the head off of the ATF. Definitely cutting their law enforcement efforts by the ATF. And I kind of want to address that. And I think it's important that we do cut law enforcement efforts throughout all the alphabet agencies, except for the law enforcement branches like the FBI, the Department of Justice, Homeland Security. You know, there's no reason for the Department of Ed to be being engaged in law enforcement. That's what the DOJ is for. There's no reason for the ATF to be engaged in law enforcement. That's what the FBI is for. So I think it's wise to cut law enforcement efforts of the ATF. That's a huge thing without cutting their ability to do things like reverse traces so they can then, be able to investigate gun crime, that sort of thing. Primarily not so they can enforce the law, but because they're the only ones that do that right now. There won't be a director. I can almost tell you there will not be a director anytime before probably May, if not a director. You'll have interim directors and things like that. But I don't believe you're going to have a director of the ATF because you cut the budget, you cut their law enforcement efforts, you're not going to have a director. I don't believe there's going to be a director anytime soon. And I believe that all current White House gun control efforts are going to be shredded. Now, I say that not because I have any insight into that other than we just have the quote from the current elect President Trump that all of these gun control efforts are going to be shredded and ripped up his first week. So let's just assume he means what he says and that he's going to do those things. So I believe that what you're going to see happen to the ATF is you're going to definitely see some federal cuts, if not all federal cuts. You're going to see definitely law enforcement efforts cut. You're definitely not going to see a director anytime soon. And you're going to see just whatever took place over the last 4 years shredded. Shredded. Now, the piece that concerns me, and this is the one that should concern everybody, is that the current president or the current president-elect, as well as the current Department of Justice appointee, who will then be most likely the Department of Justice director, Pam Bondi, both are very pro-red flags. I only say that not by what they do, but by what they say. Twice, President Trump has said he is very pro. Take the guns first, then do due process. Pam Bondi from Florida tried to push that through as a federal thing. If there is federal efforts to pass red flag laws, like federal red flag laws, I think you just say goodbye to the Second Amendment at that point. I don't care who the president, you like the president or not. If there's federal red flag laws, there is no Second Amendment. Be very clear on that. There is no Second Amendment. So I think that in the end, what we're looking at, if you look at, well, what's going to happen to the ATF? What's the future of that? I think, again, definitely big cuts, if not all cuts, federally, budget-wise. I believe that law enforcement efforts are going to be cut. I don't think there's going to be any director running operations for quite a while. And I believe that a lot of the current gun control measures are just going to be shredded. And these are all really, I believe, good for the Second Amendment. If there's efforts to pass federal red flag laws, I'd rather have the ATF telling me I can't have a pistol brace than somebody coming into my house and telling me I can't have any guns because I'm a Christian. That, I'd rather, just think about that one for a little bit. I'd rather do without the pistol brace. So there you go. That's my thoughts. I'd love to know your thoughts on it. I'm just trying to be honest about it. I'm sure a lot of people will be like, no, my favorite, president is never going to do that. And I hope you're right. I hope you're right. I'm just telling you what he said. I'm just telling you what the man said and what the current DOJ appointee said. Not my opinion. It's what they said. So, that's all we can base this off of. That's the only way we can kind of predict what's going to happen is by basing it off what those people who will be in charge said they're going to do. So there you go. Any insight on any of that? Definitely put it below. Do want to take a moment and see most people watch the channel. Hey, they're not subscribers. Click that subscribe button. It greatly increases the algorithm and our ability to get these messages out. That link is below. But most important part of this channel, we take prayer requests. Please don't ever, ever hesitate to send that stuff in. Thank you for watching this episode of God, Family, and Guns. And as always, love God, love your family, and love guns.